Wikipedia. What is Wikipedia? It is one of the top 5 most used websites in the world. As anybody who has ever Googled anything knows, usually Wikipedia is one of the first 3 or 4 things that pops up. So that means that it's where people are getting most of their information. And for better or worse, that's where most people are getting their scientific information from these days. So there's a real need for that content to be accurate and up to date. And that's where we come in as Wikipedia editors. Currently, the last I checked, there are more than 6.5 million articles just in English on Wikipedia. And obviously that grows every day. And obviously there are millions more in other languages. The thing to know about Wikipedia is there is nobody who is Wikipedia. People ask me this all the time and they complain about something being wrong on Wikipedia. I'm like, I just run the editathons. I just edit Wikipedia. I don't work for Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a community, big group project. So there has to be consensus on how things work on Wikipedia. There's nobody sort of standing up here sort of dictating anything. So that's very important to keep in mind is you are not necessarily better or worse than anybody else on Wikipedia. So what do we cover on Wikipedia? Pretty much everything. There are a couple of criteria for what can be listed. The 2 are sort of notability. So it's something that belongs in an encyclopedia. And 2, it is significant, which means there are enough external resources that can be used to build citations in for that article. So for example, here, obviously there is an article on E. coli because that's something that has a lot of research being done on it. What there isn't is a dictionary. So it's not a list of definitions of words. It's not how-to articles. Scientists get caught up on this a lot, saying like, oh, I want to write a how-to article and explain something. It's also not just sort of personal opinion. Everything is very much driven by the sources that you use. Sources are everything on Wikipedia. And there are criteria for the kinds of sources that you can use. And this is very important. You have to have multiple sources. So you can't just have one article that you're constantly referring back to. That is going to get taken down by the editors. So you have to have multiple sources. They have to be reliable, which means, and there's a lot of definition that goes into what is considered reliable, but usually something that is printed in mainstream media, has been published in a journal. Those are the kinds of things that are considered reliable. Blogs, that's when you're starting to get iffy. Social media, that's when you're starting to get into opinion. So you have to be very careful about the sources that you use. And the sources also have to be independent. So if you're writing an article, for example, about ASM, you can't just be citing stuff from the ASM website because you can see how that could create a conflict of interest. Not such a big deal for ASM, but for example, if you were talking about potentially a political candidate and everything is coming from their webpage, is that actually neutrally based? So thinking about what you are sourcing and where that is coming from is really, really critical. And the reason is because you have no credibility on Wikipedia. You have a pseudonym that you use as your user account, but it doesn't matter who you are or what letters come after your name. You are only as good as the edits and the sources that you provide to Wikipedia. There's an interesting story. There was an article about Richard Dawkins, the evolutionary biologist, and there was something on there that he felt was wrong. So he went in and edited it himself, and his edits got rejected because he didn't have a source. And his source was himself. He said, I didn't do this. And they said, well, this other thing says that you did, and it was printed in the magazine. So it was this whole back and forth. So if Richard Dawkins can't get something changed about himself on Wikipedia, imagine what you can or cannot get changed by yourself. So focus on what sources you use and what edits you make. And when editors see that you have made lots of edits and that you make good quality edits that aren't getting overturned and reversed, they'll say, okay, I trust this person. Their edits are going to stay. And it's a big process. And there are definitely, it's like Animal Farm. There are some users who are more equal than others. That's certainly the case on Wikipedia. But this is sort of the commitment that you decide to make. Wikipedia is not a review article, and this is something that's very important for scientists to understand, the level of literature and sort of the verbiage that we use on Wikipedia. So a primary article is the primary literature. We all publish our papers using that. So this is a primary source. A secondary source is a review article. So it's a compendium, a review of the primary literature. We're all used to that. Wikipedia, as an encyclopedia, is a tertiary source. It is a summary of review articles. So if you're trying to write about a scientific topic on Wikipedia, you do not want to be summarizing or posting stuff from primary literature. You are trying to summarize from review articles because the level of the language that's used and the content that is there has to be accessible to everyone. Now, some of these articles get into more detail than others, and you can have sub-branches of different articles. But as a starting point, when you're thinking about what sources you're trying to use, you want to use review articles. So keep that in mind because that is a big hang up because if you get too technical, your edits are going to get rejected and they're not going to appear there. So I'm just going to give a couple of examples of how to get started. So the easiest way to start is to start with what you know and what you are comfortable with. And that can be scientific content, that can be hobbies. I do a lot of editing just on like music articles and things that I'm interested in. So for example, there are millions and millions of pages that have something like this at the top where there's this little box and it says, this article needs additional citations for verification. This is a call for help. Somebody who has edited this page has said, hey, there's something on here. There are lots of things on here that need somebody to check in on. I don't have the time to do it, but if you're reading this, you should know that there is an opportunity here. So if it's something that you know a lot about, this is where you can start. And usually what you're looking for is, see where it says citation needed? That's where you could go in, do some research and say, oh, I can put a citation in right there because somebody asked for it. So that's a real easy way to get started. Slightly more difficult is sort of building out existing articles that don't have a lot of content. This is what's known as a stub on Wikipedia. 2 sentences, 2 references. So there's a little bit of information, but nobody would go to this and be like, wow, that was a great article. I really know about this now. So this can be really greatly expanded. And so this is an opportunity, if this is your area of expertise, to really dive in and say like, okay, I'm going to really sort of build this out. And I can talk in the Q&A or afterwards about where to actually find these kinds of articles because the editors do a really good job maintaining and sort of updating the list of what needs to be edited. The most difficult, and people always think they're going to start here, but I would say do not start here, is to start from scratch and try to create a new article. So there are obviously subjects that don't have any content. This is a big lift if you've never done any editing, if you don't have any idea of sort of how to create content, how to organize, how to source, but it's an option. And my recommendation for Wikipedia is you can't break Wikipedia. Somebody is always there to revert any edits you make or sort of take something down. So to try, and sort of that's how you get good at editing Wikipedia is really just by trying. So this was, I know, a very fast overview, but I want to mention that we have an online group that meets the first Friday of every month to edit articles. So you can join us if you want to take a picture of that. That's the link to sign up. And we meet for about 2 hours and just edit. There's no sort of formal structure, but I'm there to help give advice. We share out some of the work that we've done. If there are questions that people have, we sort of talk about those as well. So you're welcome to join us. Thank you.